Hello and welcome back to the Coming of Cage podcast. I am Derek. I am one of your two hosts. Your other host, Ryan, is right here.
Yes, I am. Thank you for bringing that up, Derek. I am here.
Yeah, well, I thought people should know.
I'm live from our podcast studio in Kansas City, Kansas. Derek, I think you are in the Bahamas, somewhere QS maybe. I know that you are you only fly on the finest planes and that you go to the finest podcast offices. So I can only assume that you're somewhere there.
Yeah. If you listen closely, you can hear the seagulls.
That was a
Nah,
seagull. I'm pretty sure I heard
yeah,
in the
maybe.
background there. But I'm no bird expert, so who knows?
That's probably just because I keep feeding them.
That'll
But
do it.
that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about Nicolas Cage movies. We
Indeed.
are your Nicolas Cage movie review podcast. And this week, episode 37 of the show, we are talking about Season of the Witch from 2011. Season of the Witch that stars Nicolas Cage and Ron Perlman.
One of several movies that they've done together, apparently.
Yeah. Christopher Lee has a small role, co-stars Claire Foy. And those are the kind of the main people that you would probably recognize from the movie. What the movie is, 14th century knights transport a suspected witch to a monastery where monks deduce that her powers could be the source of the Black Plague. That's not really a very good synopsis, but that's what's on IMDb. So there you go.
That's right.
um, yeah. So Ryan, you like to take notes while we
I
watch
do.
these movies, and then we like to go through said notes.
Indeed.
What do you got for us
Well, I think this is just to be clear, the second medieval era Nick Cage movie we've done.
that
We
we've
did
covered? Yes, we
we've done the
covered
one with Anakin Skywalker,
Outcast. That was episode 15.
right, where he's a white savior.
Yes.
And spoiler alert, if you haven't seen that movie. And then this one. I'm looking forward to more medieval because, I don't know. He works in that setting for me, even if the movie's bad. Like you can tell he just really likes being there.
Yeah, he actually learned to sword fight and ride horses for this movie.
I'm gonna be honest. I found out that this movie had a choreographer, and that was really surprising to me based on the fight scenes. But you know,
Well, there were
sorry
extensive reshoots.
if you were the choreographer on this movie and I just really offended you. I'm very sorry, but you need to do your job better.
The movie saw they brought in Brett Ratner to do the reshoots for some
Mm.
reason. Mr. X-Men: The Last Stand. Dominic Sena was the original director, but did not oversee the extensive supposed reshoots that this movie had. And this movie took 11 years to get made in total. They've been trying to make this movie for 11 years, and this was the final product. I'm just going to throw that out there.
Did you look at the poster on IMDb? It's really interesting because Nicolas Cage is written in big letters at the top, and
Yeah.
then it says "Season of the Witch" and Ron Perlman in like almost completely camouflaged letters right underneath that.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
That seems interesting to me. Anyway,
And it was a January release, which is always a good sign for
yeah,
this
that's
January.
that's where they
Raise
put
some
all their
hell.
best movies.
All the best.
January, February.
That way you get that one week where you can say the best movie of the year.
That's true. You do get that.
you know?
So starting off, we started off this movie in a town named Village,
Yep.
which I thought was it's spelled village, but the way everybody says it, it just sounds like they're saying village,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a town. So I just thought that was humorous. So that was my first note.
Yeah, we see a lot of locations at the beginning. It's a bit of a montage.
Yes, well, that's a little bit. I think that was a little bit after this part, but so right at the beginning we get the hanging of the witches.
Oh, right. The
of the
hanging. Yeah.
of the when I say witches, I'm saying it in quotes because historically, there's some weird things going on with just women being falsely accused of being witches. I can't say for sure whether witches exist, so maybe they weren't all false, but it seemed like a way to just keep women down that were causing a ruckus.
Now, according to this movie, at least one of those three women was supernatural in some way because she does
Correct. I
not
don't think
die.
this is I think that this is loosely based on real things. Like takes place during the Crusades, which is a thing that really happened, or like, you know, the witch trials and witch hangings were a thing, so I guess that really happened. The Black Plague was a real thing; it really happened.
You could say this falls in the inspired by a true
Right,
story.
similar to Snowden. I would put it really close to Snowden, you know, in the amount of truth that's in the movie.
Wow. Wow.
Anyway, yeah, we get this really kind of graphic scene of three women being put with nooses around their neck on a bridge, which this was kind of a different kind of hanging than what I've seen in movies before. So I thought that was interesting. But, you know, one of them is begging for their life and saying that they were a witch and that they're, you know, they are want to believe in the real God and that they believe in the real God and they want forgiveness for their transgressions, trying to save themselves. But really the priest is there just tells them that that's for saving their soul and their body still needs to go or something along those lines. And they basically flip them with the noose over the edge of the bridge and they just hang off the bridge that way. And it's pretty graphic.
And then they lower the bodies into the water so they'll drown.
Them, yeah. If they weren't already dead.
They're supposed to go and do this other thing. And the guys are like, yeah, hung and drowned is dead enough, I think.
Right. It's like they've never heard of Rasputin. I mean, come on. I mean, I'm not a history major or anything, so maybe Rasputin hadn't happened yet.
But... yeah, I think that was later.
Oh, well, he learned from this, I guess. But yeah, in any case, the priest goes and stops the guards, and he tells them that that they need to perform this sacred ritual from this weird, bejeweled, bedazzled holy book that they carry around that looks like an 8-year-old made it.
It's a special book of Solomon.
Right. It's just got like little rhinestones and stuff on it. It's really weird looking, but yeah, the Book of Solomon, exactly. But yeah, they tell him, oh, we drowned them and hung them, so they're taken care of. You don't need to do that. Well, then he starts pulling the bodies up and doing it anyway. Until one of them, the priest, yeah, and until one of the bodies comes to life and drowns him. He's trying to like pull the ropes up from the bridge, and somehow the witch or whatever it is, you know, yanks the rope back and knocks him into the water and kills him. Kills him? No, I can't remember.
I don't think we really know.
Yeah, you don't see the death, but it's implied that he gets attacked at the very least by this supernatural force. And also the Hound from Game of Thrones was one of the guards, which I thought was
right. Yeah.
I thought I was like, he looks familiar, and that's what he is. Yeah,
he was just a pup back then.
Right. And yeah, I from this opening scene, I don't know if you did, but I was getting major Evil Dead vibes.
Oh, the way Army of Darkness kind of.
Yeah, Evil Dead, Army of Darkness. Yeah, the way the witches were moving was very Deadite like, and the way they looked.
That's interesting. I did not make that connection, but I totally see it.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. That was basic. That wasn't the only place where I got Evil Dead vibes, but I feel really weird comparing it to Evil Dead because Evil Dead is one of my favorite franchises, and this movie was more enjoyable than I expected it to be, but definitely like still in the middle tier of Nick Cage movies, solidly. Anyway, yes, that whole scene's happened. He gets attacked by the witch or whatever it happens to be at that point, and then we cut to the desert, and we get Nick Cage fighting people. And then we cut to the snow, and we get Nick Cage and Ron Perlman fighting people. And then we cut to a tropical palace where Nick Cage and Ron Perlman are fighting people. And then we cut to a moldy castle where Nick Cage and Ron Perlman are killing people. And then we cut to a sewer where Nick Cage and Ron Perlman are killing people. And it's literally like a montage that goes to 10 or 12 different places of him just massacring people in the name of his god. Every time has their like leader or what, I don't know how it was in that time, but they have like a person following him around telling him they kill in the name of God.
Yeah, he's one of the priests.
A priest / military leader of some kind. But
Nick and Ron just keep joking about who's going to buy the rounds after the battle.
Yeah, it's a very Gimli Legolas type of scenario where they're like, oh, if I kill more of these innocent people in the name of God, then then you buy drinks or whatever.
Yeah,
it's kind of a running gag throughout the film.
But I think like 10 years or so go by.
It's a lot of time, and he gets more and more beard throughout the thing, and his hair is blonde, which I thought was interesting. It was a good look for him. I actually thought the blonde hair suited him.
It reminded me of Con Air.
Was his hair blonde in that? I thought it was more like brown,
It's a light brown. There's in the sun, it's kind of
but it's
gleaming.
it's like blonde in this
It
movie,
is.
though.
Yeah.
Yeah, straight up. And at this part, when we're seeing all these fights and everything, is when I'm starting to check the box on our bingo card for bad action sequence,
Mm.
because almost not all of them, but almost every action sequence in this fight was full of shaky cam, or in this movie was full of shaky cam, and just lots of cuts. Where you couldn't see who was really doing the action. You're just assuming it's Nick Cage, but it was probably a stunt double, or Ron Perlman. It was probably a stunt double.
Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. So that I marked that point pretty early on our bingo card. So Arcade Show bingo.
Fair
Uh,
enough.
so yeah, at the end of one of these fights, they realize that their like whole squad of religious zealots just murdered a bunch of women and children in the name of their Christian god.
Mm-hmm.
And he is not okay with that. Nick Cage is not okay with that. He goes and talks to he hears that same religious commander guy spouting off about how what they're doing is gonna send them to heaven, and they're on the right side of God and everything else. And then Nick Cage brings up that they're killing women and children, and the dude does not like to hear that, obviously. And so Nick Cage quits being a knight, which apparently is a thing you can do.
Well, no, it's not. They're deserters.
Yeah, I mean, you're not supposed to do that,
You
but
know,
I guess it
so
does happen.
so I wonder, does that count on our KJO bingo as Nick is a criminal? Well, it says a former criminal, but like he's a deserter who ends up he stops being a deserter. Does that make him a criminal?
Does working for the government count as being a knight for the king? I mean, I don't know. I think
I
you're
would
pretty
say,
getting
I
into
would say
semantics
so.
here.
I think so because it's military. He's a knight. He is in the military of the era.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's fair. I didn't mark that box off, but I did. We did talk about it briefly
I
about
think
whether
that
that
one
counts.
counts. I think
Yeah.
that one counts.
That doesn't change my outcome on my board, but it's good to know. I'm not going to spoil what that outcome is, but you can probably guess. Anyway, yeah. So they quit. The Crusades are over for Nick and Ron. Um, yeah, and so they just like walk away, and nobody stops them, I guess. And they just start traveling, and they run across this barn type of, or some sort of house, with a barn or something like that. It's some big,
It's a
like,
farm.
it's a
Yeah.
farmstead
Yeah.
basically. And it's abandoned, and so they go inside, and it doesn't look like it's been abandoned for that long, but they go in and find seemingly the owners lying in bed together, and they are disgusting.
Yeah, it's pretty gross. Like
And
it's some like Resident Evil type looking stuff.
yeah, a lot of the body horror type. I don't know if that would be considered body horror, but it's like weird things growing out of people's bodies, and they didn't hide that at all. I mean, they showed you everything. It was pretty gnarly looking, most of it.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse my 80s skater lingo, but yeah, it was very gruesome.
Yes.
And then while they're looking at it, of course, one of the corpses like has its final muscle tension release or whatever, and like lunges for a second. But Nick is not scared. I don't know if you noticed that, but he didn't move. This guy is like stone cold.
Well, he's been fighting the Crusades for a decade,
That's true,
Imagine
but
what
they
he's
aren't
seen.
they aren't gross people covered in you know
Whatever that.
growths.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
that's true.
like
That's true.
So yeah, they decided to immediately commit casual arson, which is not a square on our board, but maybe
No,
it
it's
should be.
not.
We have had several movies where he's lit things on fire. So.
I don't know if this counts as casual arson though. Like he clearly sees it like something happened to these people and he's burning it because
And he's like, I need to burn down their entire farmstead because they got sick.
that's not a normal illness.
He's not a doctor.
I imagine he's never seen that before.
Okay, well, he's probably never seen, the ocean before, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Well, I don't know
I'm just
necessarily that
saying
he would try and catch the
he's a
ocean on
knight.
fire, but
He probably would. I mean, he just lights everything on fire when he thinks it's weird, apparently.
uh,
Yeah. So they keep moving and they get to this town, and as they approach it, you literally can see just ravens or crows or some sort of black bird just circling this town. Maybe vultures, I guess it could have been. I don't know, but there's a crap ton of birds and they are circling this town. They're nowhere else. It
yeah.
just looks like a bird NATO over the town.
Look, I want
And
to provide a hot tip for our listeners. If you're going to a town and you see just giant black birds circling that town,
don't go into that town. It seems
right?
like probably something's bad. Yeah, that's what my note said is birds circling town, not at all ominous.
Go
They're
somewhere
just like,
else.
oh yeah, we should just go here. It's fine.
Well, now to be fair, so Ron Perlman's character, his name is Felson. Felson says they should go around, not because of the birds, because he doesn't want to get recognized, but still, he
Right.
does say go around.
They probably just see the birds in those ages as like chickens, and you just shoot them down and eat them or something. I don't know, but
Maybe.
who knows?
Not a lot of shooting happened in this movie.
They're probably like some good eating. Well,
Okay.
bows and arrows. I mean, yeah, there weren't even those, but I mean, they existed during the time.
Sure. I don't think that our two heroes had bows.
I don't think so either. They're knights, so they were all about the sword play. But yeah, they go into town despite the ominous bird circling and the bird NATO above them, and they start doing stuff, buying things, preparing for a longer journey. They get new horses, things like that. And as they're getting their new horses, his sword falls out. Nick's sword falls out of its really stealthy fabric wrap. It's literally just it looks like a roll of fabric that's the length of a sword, and it's not flexible. So I don't know what they would have thought was in there, but
Well, no, it's
yeah,
not that he had a sword. It's that they saw the crest.
right. Yeah, the
That's
handle
the
like
problem.
slides out, and
Yeah.
they see that he's a Knight Templar or whatever, and that he's abandoned his post. So they get arrested. They get stopped by a bunch of the guards, and they fight some of them. And then they're like, okay, fine, we'll go. And so they put him in jail. And then a priest comes and get him and says, oh, the king wants to talk to you, or the whatever he is. Was he a king?
Well, we do get our first glimpse of the supposed witch because she's in the dungeon too. She's in the next cell over.
Yeah.
Right. And we see immediately, because the movie does this a lot. So I just want to call it the first time it happens. Immediately, Nick Cage's character, which is Bayman, is enthralled with this woman. She's actually just credited as the girl. It's Claire Foy's character. He's like enthralled with her, and it basically ties back into the fact that like he accidentally killed like this innocent woman in like the last battle that he was in the Crusades, and he's feeling very guilty about that.
Yeah, I don't know if enthralled is the word I would use, but he's definitely like interested in this person because she's not acting normal. She's acting a little off, and I feel like that has caught his attention. But yeah, then they get taken to the king. Is it a king? I don't know. Mayor.
He's a cardinal, but it's Christopher Lee, which is pretty cool.
Which I thought he looked familiar, but you can't really tell it's him.
It's the voice. It's the voice.
Yeah, he's like he again is in all this kind of plague makeup that has like things bubbling out of his flesh, and his mouth is kind of messed up. Yeah, it's all kind of weirds. And I guess if you look at the facts on IMDb, that they had to like dub over everything he said, because when you have facial appliances like that, you can't really speak properly, which I mean, in hindsight, that's obvious. He spoke very clearly for somebody that had this kind of weird mouth thing happening. But yeah, so he talks to him, and this guy's like, I think the source of this black plague is a witch, and I need you to take her to this monastery where they have the last copy of the Book of Solomon, which is the bejeweled book from the beginning of the movie. Mm-hmm. And theirs got burned up. I guess we forgot to mention that book got burned up at the beginning of the movie.
Right.
So this is the last copy, essentially.
Hmm.
And so he said, I need you to take this witch from the prison and take her all the way to this monastery where they have this copy of this book and they can perform a ceremony and make her normal again or whatever. So they're like, no, we won't do it. And they get put back in jail. And then they're like, okay, I guess we'll do it.
Well, he's got this great line where he's like, he says something about how like he's a man of God but not of the church.
Yeah.
And it's a really really great line, and I wish I had it. I should have kept. Oh, that's I serve the church no more.
Yeah. Which is fair. I mean, depending on your belief system. But yeah, he's finally is like, okay, I accept your quest. And then he goes about forming a full D&D party. Ron Perlman is the barbarian. Nick Cage is the fighter. They have a cleric. Actually, Nick Cage is more of a paladin, like an Oathbreaker type paladin. But then
Yeah.
you have the cleric traveling with you. You have the greenhorn that's with you that you have to train, your squire or whatever.
That
You
one
have
person in
the
your party who just picked human for some reason.
right. You have the rogue that's like kind of sketchy because he sells trinkets that are fake historical trinkets.
To be fair, we actually never learn if he sells bogus stuff or not.
No, but it's implied that he's like a charlatan.
It's implied, but we don't know if he's being falsely
Nick,
accused.
part of the forming the D&D party is that Nick is like, well, I need somebody to lead us that's been there before, and so they're like, I know this shady salesman that can take you there, and the guy's like, oh yeah, I've been there 100 times. We have to just go through this forest of the wilds that is so easy to get lost and murdered there, but we go right through it. It's no problem. I know the path. So you have literally like every bit of the D&D party covered, and the witch I guess could be the spellcaster or whatever, but she doesn't, the spellcaster that hates your party. But yeah, so they do that and they throw the witch in the cage, and in like a rolling cage. It's literally a carriage that just has wooden bars all around it, and like this all powerful witch is apparently so powerful that she can't break wooden or iron bars or whatever it is. I mean, either way, it's not a sturdy thing. It didn't look that sturdy. What did you think?
Well, keep in mind, like at this point, right? The whole thing is that they think she's a witch because she caused the plague.
Yeah.
And she is just like confessing to that. Supposedly, we never actually saw her confess to that. That happened before we met her, but she supposedly had confessed to that. So it's not like she's like performing magic in front of people.
Yeah.
Right. But I mean, I don't know. Like it was the 14th century. Maybe that was as good of a rolling jail as they could make. I don't know.
Sure, but like this witch that can cause a plague can't like get past some bars on a wooden carriage.
I mean, she was in a dungeon and hadn't gotten out.
Yeah, but that at least has stone walls and stuff. I mean,
and like a metal gate that's no different than the carriage.
Sure, but the carriage floor is presumably not like iron. I don't know.
I mean,
I just thought it was a little weird.
I mean, look, at the end of the day, I mean, spoiler alert, but we find out why she can't escape from the carriage.
Yeah. Then we get some green screen horseback riding, which unfortunately is again not a thing on our bingo card.
Well, let me ask: is that the same as green screen driving?
That's what I'm saying. It's not a traditional. No, I mean you don't drive a horse. Nobody says I'm driving my horse this weekend.
Oh, so what if it was green screen motorcycle riding? That wouldn't count.
Right, that's correct.
Wow. Okay.
The whole point is that they're in a car and you see terrible green screen behind it. But yes,
okay.
It was does this count as a low speed car chase, even though they're horses? Like, I mean, I don't know.
Well, who's chasing them?
We're semantics now. I don't know. There's
Nobody
probably
was
somebody chasing them. I don't know. They have to get chased at some. Oh, the wolves at one point.
That doesn't count.
But yeah,
another vehicle chasing them, another carriage.
Yeah. Okay. Well, in any case, yeah, there's some green screen. You can't get Nick doing any kind of traveling without using green screen behind him, whether it's a car or a motorcycle or a horse.
Well, so a lot of that actually, in this case, unfortunately, is due to the reshoots, because the original film was mostly shot on location, but the reshoots
you could definitely tell. You could definitely tell which ones were the reshoots because yeah, the green screen was really obvious. And when they were actually shooting, the horseback riding scenes, they looked good. I mean, it looked fine. Nothing stood out. I was actually surprised at how good it looked, but the green screen did not look good. So,
Yep.
um, so yeah, then Klaus from Umbrella Academy shows up,
Which one's he?
and he's the squire or whatever, the guy that wants to be a knight that
Oh,
shows
okay.
up.
Okay.
Yeah, if you've ever seen Umbrella Academy, it's a much different character in that show than what it is
K
here.
Kai.
Kai, yeah, and he wants to be a knight, and he'll do anything to be a knight, and he offers to like squire or whatever for Nick and Ron, and they they make him fight Ron Perlman. We're like, oh, this like 5'8" kid that weighs 100 pounds soaking wet. Let's have him fight 260-pound, 6'5" Ron Perlman with swords, live swords.
Swords.
This seems like a good way to test this kid's mettle. And big surprise, the kid gets the shit kicked out of him. I mean, he gets a couple licks in, but I guess they just admire his gumption, and they're like, "Okay, you can come with us."
Well, Bayman does. Felson
Yeah,
does not care for the kid. Felson wants to kill the kid.
right. Yeah, which seems like a reasonable thing to do. He did follow them after being told, "Don't follow us." And I did think, I don't know if you caught it, but like leading up to this, when they were meeting with the king a couple of times, they did have lingering shots on that character a few times, and I'm like, why are they focused on this kid that seemingly is meaningless at this point? But then, yeah, you find out why later. But still, it was funny.
It was
Literally just like 4 or 5 seconds of just a shot of this kid reacting.
I mean, the kid's got guts though. He's like, "This is a public road. I'm allowed to be here just as much as you are."
Yeah, and Nick is kind to this witch, in quotes, witch.
Yeah, he keeps demanding that she get a fair trial at the monastery.
That was one of his conditions for taking on the quest. He gives her blankets and food. Yeah, he's pretty kind to her. And she tells him that the priest that she doesn't want to be alone with the priest, and she implies that he has violated her, and was abusive, and used Nick, while they were in the prisons together, saw that she had some major like damage to her back, scars and like wounds and things like that. So that kind of lends to the fact that maybe the priest is abusing her in some way. I got the implication that it was like a sexual abuse type of situation.
Oh, I didn't get that.
Maybe that was, I don't know. It was a weird, the way she reacted was, I don't know. It was,
she was trying to manipulate Bayman. Right.
She was, but we don't know if there's necessarily a layer of truth to that as well. I mean, she probably just didn't hurt herself to get those wounds on her back.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I think it's certainly possible for both the girl and the priest to both be bad people.
Yeah, I mean,
right.
For sure. And the priest did seem sketchy AF.
Yes.
Throughout a lot of this movie.
Very much.
And it turns out not sketchy, but he did give those vibes.
I don't know. Just because he was right about this doesn't make him like absolved and like a good person necessarily.
No, but he wasn't like trying to get one over on anybody. He was correct, and he was just trying to do what he thought was right. Now, I don't agree with, if there was abuse, obviously, but throughout what we see in the movie from him, he was on the up and up.
I suppose.
As much as you hate that. So then the witch escapes. She manipulates one of the red shirt that's traveling with the group to come up to the cage, and he's also kind to this witch, and so she like grabs him and gets out. I don't remember exactly how it happened, but she like attacks him. And
she grabs him, and that gets the priest to run over, and the priest has the key around his neck. So she grabs
the key,
his necklace, stabs the priest with his own cross, which begs some interesting kind of logistical questions about what happens later. It's hard to talk about this, I guess, without jumping too far ahead, but we find out, spoilers, that she's not a witch. She's actually possessed by a demon.
Right.
So theoretically, she shouldn't have been able to touch a cross, or even really the priest for
I
that
mean,
matter.
unless our definition of a demon is not. I mean, we know what the common American mythology is for a demon. But that doesn't necessarily mean that that's true in the context of this movie.
Well, but she like shies away from the cross when it comes out, right? The holy water, things like that. So it just seems like that's the one time that it doesn't follow the rules.
I guess, but I mean, it's their universe. They can pick and choose exactly what they want from
That
that
is true.
mythology, without us having to question everything. But yes, according to general mythology, that would be something that a demon couldn't do. So then we get Nick Cage animal abuse. Was this the wolves? I
I mean,
feel like this
that's
happened before the wolves. He did something that was
yeah. The wolves is later, so because they go out and they have to get the girl back, right? And they end up in this kind of like dug into the ground labyrinth that we learn is a mass grave, and she manipulates Kai, or not Kai, Eckhart, into thinking he hears and sees his daughter, and he ends up running straight into Kai, who stabs him and kills him.
yeah.
Right. And then we end up getting the girl back. She just all of a sudden is just kind of back. And that's all explained later in the movie about why that goes the way that it does. But the
Oh yeah,
wolf
this
thing is
was
later.
this was the scene where they were all in like that weird quarry looking thing, right?
It was a mass grave,
Is that that's what well yeah, but
dug underground.
there's like tunnels leading to it. Yeah,
Yes.
so
Yeah.
it felt like a quarry, but yeah, it ended up being a mass grave. Yeah. Weird scene, but I don't remember what the animal abuse was. What was the animal abuse there?
I mean, so there is a dog that's eating some of
That's
the
what it
dead
is.
bodies,
Yeah, and he like kicks it or something.
but I mean, it's a pretty aggressive dog that's eating human flesh. So I'm
Yeah, I mean,
not
this is not like a domesticated dog.
right.
Like it's not your pet.
Like it's
It's
eating a
not
human body,
it's not your little chihuahua. It's this is a dog that like has seen some shit.
right? It's not like
And
Jack Black and Anchorman. He doesn't just punt a dog.
right, I mean, he kicks a dog, a feral dog, essentially that was eating human flesh. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's still technically animal abuse, but probably one that's a little more forgivable than you
I don't know
know.
if it counts as abuse if the thing is going to like chew your throat off, you know?
Well, was the dog being threatening to him? I felt like it was just
It,
eating its meal.
but once it saw them, it like starts snarling and growling and all these things. And you're watching it eat another human. So like I feel like getting rid of the dog is not abuse at that point.
Right.
It's like if a wolf is out like later, like the wolves, right? Like that's not abuse,
Yeah.
self defense.
True.
You know,
I mean, I guess depending on the viewpoint, it could be considered abuse, but we're kind of getting into the weeds there. So after the mass grave thing, where
yeah.
she kind of acts all meek and please save me, don't let him near me, and all that
By the
stuff.
way, Claire Foy is very good in this
Yeah,
role.
I think I have that somewhere in these notes that she was really really good,
Yeah,
and the fact that I haven't seen her in more things is weird to me. But
because like I think if I was in this world, I totally would have bought into her manipulations. I think she really sold it
yeah,
very
I
well.
agree. I mean, I guess she's been in some good stuff, just not stuff that I necessarily have watched.
Yeah, I mean, she was in 23 episodes of The Crown, which is very critically acclaimed. It's just not something you or I typically watch.
Right.
So she's clear, she's in stuff, but she was a bright spot in this movie.
For sure. Yeah. Um, so yeah, we get that whole scene with the mass grave, and then they get her back in the cage and they're traveling toward the monastery, and then we get the whole bridge scene, which they come across this bridge that looks like it's been rotted out. It hasn't been used in a long time. And they go to the guide and go, "Hey, guide, I thought you take this. I thought you take this all the time." And this kind of leads more to the fact that he could be a little bit of a charlatan about, things that he's involved in. And he's like, "Oh, I did. It didn't look like this when I left it last time."
It was like 9 years ago or
Yeah,
whatever.
exactly. It's been 10 years or whatever since he's been there. But yeah, the bridge is all rotted out. And of course, the first thing that Nicolas Cage does is grab his horse and starts walking across the bridge. And he gets across. He brings the horse across, and then he tells the others to bring the horses across, and they get the horses across. But then, because the horses are already across, they have to go back and move the carriage by hand.
Mm-hmm.
that has her trapped in it. And so they're pulling it across, and of course, it's going to happen. The bridge starts fraying. Somebody falls through, and it was the Umbrella Academy Klaus guy.
Kai.
And when he falls through, the witch grabs him and easily lifts him up. And there's a few times in this movie where she shows immense strength, well beyond that of somebody her size. And this is one of those where she's seemingly lifting. I mean, to be fair, he probably weighed like 100 pounds, but
she grabs him by the wrist with one hand, and it's effortless.
Yeah, and they're struggling to get this thing across the bridge before it breaks. So she's like, "Let me out, I can help. Let me out, I can help." And of course, they don't. But they eventually get it across the bridge after much suspense on a suspension bridge. It was wonderful. Any thoughts on that scene, Derek, before we move on?
I mean, it was a little cliche, but I thought it was very well done. I thought the special effects, it looked really good. It didn't look like they were sitting on a terrible green screen or anything like that. There's some very kind of like intense moments to it, right? Because they've kind of created like a pulley system in a way. And, the priest is just like bleeding through his bandages out because he's been stabbed in the hand, and
right.
I liked it. I thought it did build some interesting suspense. And at that point, you're still not really sure yet if she's really a witch or anything. I mean, once she catches Kai, it's pretty clear there's something up, but that's towards the end of the scene. So up until that point, you're like she could fall and die, right?
Well, but there's one point she's fighting people, and Ron Perlman's character comments on the amount of strength that she has
in the dungeon. Yeah. But even then, like, it could have just been that she was like crazed trying to escape for her life, kind of.
Sure, but that doesn't necessarily make you like able to out muscle a guy.
I know there's like the mom that lifts the car off the kid kind of thing, desperate times.
Yeah, a person that hasn't had proper nutrition in like potentially weeks.
And all those guys have the plague, so
yeah, I guess. Okay, so yeah, then we get the wolf scene, which is basically what it sounds like, a bunch of wolves.
A lot.
So the witch woman howls and gets all the wolves to go after them, and spoiler alert, the dog dies. They kill a lot of wolves.
A lot of wolves.
It's very sad. I never like seeing that, but it is what it is. I also, just small side note, video game makers, don't make me kill wolves and dogs. That's messed up.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that.
No.
It makes me feel like a jerk every time that happens.
Yeah, I'm looking at you, The Last of Us.
Looking at you, every Assassin's Creed game that uses dogs as guards in a village, and I have to either kill them or maim them somehow. Yeah. Anyway, that was a little side rant for you. But
even Tears of the Kingdom has wolves that attack you.
That's what I'm saying. Unnecessary.
If
my dog recoils when they hear these noises that the dogs make, it's too much.
Yeah, fair enough.
It's too much. I shouldn't have to hear my dogs reacting to me mutilating their brethren. Anyway,
my dog's
major
too
side
old.
note.
She's like, whatever.
but yes, there was a lot of wolves killed in the scene, and they weren't house dogs. They weren't your little chihuahua. They were big, mean wolves with seemingly enhanced by some sort of supernatural something, because they looked weird when the camera like zoomed in on them. They did like weird magical things to their faces.
I think that's supposed to be when they're possessed.
Yeah, exactly.
Which that was a little Evil Dead-esque.
Yeah, it was. Well, they also did that. The witch had that happen a couple times.
Yes.
Throughout the movie. So yeah, it was weird. It was not practical. So
no,
it didn't look as good as it did in something that was practical like the Evil Dead, but it was interesting. I didn't really love it on the wolves. So that was a weird decision, but yeah. Okay, so what do we have next? Oh yeah, so after the wolf thing and they get away from the wolves, we lose the like rogue type guy, the
Hagamar.
Yeah, he gets eaten by the wolves, and Nick Cage's character's like, should we go back? And they're like, nah, he's gone, man. Let him go. It's like when somebody steps into lava, it's like, do you reach in and grab their hand out? It's like they're done. What are you gonna do? Hold their hand and have nothing attached to it? Great. Then the dogs will eat you too. Anyway.
Oof.
Yeah, not great. So, but good on him for trying to think about saving the guy. But yeah, smart move by Ron to tell him to move on. So they get a little ways away, and Nick's like, I'm tired of these motherfucking witches on this motherfucking trail. I'm about to kill this bitch. He didn't say that. That's not a direct quote. Something similar to that, though. He didn't say those words exactly, but basically he said those words.
I
Anyway,
mean, that's what the script said before Samuel L. Jackson bowed out.
correct. Yeah, that's exactly right. Klaatu Verada, Nico. Basically, I said them. Okay, basically I said them. Anyway, yeah. So he's like, I'm going to kill this witch right now, and Ron Perlman's like, but look, and then like the next hill has the monastery.
It was very Monty Python.
Oh my
It's
God,
only a
yeah.
model.
It was. Yeah, it was. I don't think it was meant to be comical, but it was definitely a weird moment.
Yeah.
I just wanted to be. I want to be there when the person wrote that moment into the script. It was like, oh, this is how we're going to solve this problem of Nick Cage wanting to kill this witch.
Also, like, they're not that close. It's still pretty. That's a long walk,
right? But it makes it look like it's like you have to go up and down 3 mountains to get to it, but you can see it way over there.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was funny. Yeah, so I think it's Sevlor or something that the monastery is called.
I can't remember.
They get there. Yeah, well, my note says Sevlor empty, so I assume that's the name of something. But yeah, they get to the monastery and it's a ghost town, essentially. And they're walking around and they end up finding some bodies and things like that. But yeah, everything is dead, and the place is empty. And yeah, right here I put the witch actress was really good because especially when this is kind of when the big reveal happens that the witch is not actually a witch but a demon, and the way that it was revealed and her acting, that her acting through that scene was really good.
Yes.
You could see the transition as she's finally revealing that that's what she is. I mean, it's a thing between the characters and her. But you can see as they're realizing it and she's realizing that they realize that she kind of opens up more into the demon side than the witch side. And it was pretty impressive.
Yeah, she kills it. She really does. I kind of wish they had let her do some type of practical effects version of this demon, because once she's replaced by this like full CGI dude demon,
less scary.
Right. It's just
way
not
more
as
scary
interesting.
as the actress. Yeah.
Yeah, she was so much better.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're trying to do this ritual to, I guess, undemon her or something. I don't know. But then
her.
She
exercise the demon.
I didn't see the demon doing any jumping jacks. I don't think there's any exercise going on. But
no, let's undemon her. I like it.
Yes, exactly. That's the proper terminology, Derek. Thank you very much. But yeah, the cage that she's in starts all of a sudden now it can light on fire. And melts or whatever, if it's iron, I don't really know what it was, but yeah, it starts melting as they're doing this ritual.
But we learn like why though, because she wanted to be there. She wanted them to bring her there. So like, why would she try to escape?
That's fair, but she did try to escape, so that kind of
refutes
the whole thing.
She didn't. See, that's the thing. She didn't actually try to escape. She wanted to kill the guy Eckhart, and she couldn't kill him until she got out. Right. That's why she's so easily recaptured after he dies. That's why she kills Hagamar. She only kills the 2 people who could have stood in her way on the journey.
Right.
Everybody else survives because they were helping her get to her goal.
Got it.
The demon's goal.
So she escapes from this, whole ritual thing. And goes full demon mode. But now, Nick Cage and company are like, okay, well, we got to take this thing down. We're going to end this threat once and for all. And so the priest is like, grab all the holy water you can. It's like, bitch, aren't you a priest? Can't we just like give you all the water we have and you say some like scripture? And now we have holy water?
That I don't know. I'm not an expert.
That's a weird plot hole, but especially because the priest is the one suggesting the holy water. But I mean, I feel like a priest can make his own holy water. Anyway, yeah. At this point, I started noticing the costuming. I mean, you could see a lot of the stuff throughout the movie, but one thing I really appreciated. You can talk about the quality of this movie and some of the acting and things like that, but overall the costuming was really, really good. I don't know if you noticed that, but Nick Cage's character has this like really beautiful cloak that he wears that has a really interesting design on the front for the clasp. it's like a 3 buckle clasp that goes to like halfway down his chest, and it's just you can tell it's made out of really heavy materials and the way it moves. And then even but it doesn't stop there, because that is a beautiful piece. But then as soon as he takes that cloak off, his armor underneath is all just so much effort went into that.
Yeah.
So kudos to whoever did the costuming on this, because it was really beautiful. So much that I was literally shopping for. Yeah, if you didn't know this about me, I think I've mentioned it a couple times, but I do collect movie props and costumes, and so I literally started trying to search out some of the costumes from this movie, and
Nice.
I did find one, but it wasn't for sale anymore. But it did go at auction a few years ago. Nick Cage's full costume for 700, or it didn't meet its reserve at $750, which I thought was
That's not bad.
ridiculous. That's
Yeah.
you couldn't pay somebody to make that for
No.
anywhere near that amount of money.
I mean, that's the thing. It's like when you look at the stuff that was practical in this
Yeah.
movie, the quality is pretty solid. It's good looking stuff.
Yeah. All the swords, yeah,
Mhm.
everything, all the things they held and wore were really good. And
The set pieces, the town, and stuff like that. It all looked really good. It's really just the CGI stuff, the reshoots that I think hinder the quality.
well, and a lot of the writing was not great. I honestly, I guess
Yeah.
we haven't really touched on it at this point. We haven't said much about Ron Perlman, and I think that's fair, because I was pretty disappointed in his performance in this movie. It just felt very boring, and like, I don't want to say wooden, because he's not a wooden actor, but his character just didn't feel like anything interesting. And Nick Cage's character is much more interesting. Maybe that was by design, but yeah,
He's underutilized in this movie because he's really
agreed.
there to just be the muscle and
Yeah,
to give Nick Cage somebody to bounce off of,
right.
right? But like I mean, it's Ron Perlman. He can be so much more than that, and so he's underutilized in this movie.
Yeah, it was definitely disappointing. I was excited. I always get excited when I see Ron Perlman in a movie, but yeah, this movie was not it for him,
I
sadly.
I thought we were gonna see him and Kai kind of have like this budding mentor mentee relationship that kind of begrudgingly happens over the course of the film, but we didn't get that. But that's what I was
See,
expecting.
even early on in the movie, I could tell that they weren't going to utilize him appropriately. So I thought what they were going to do with him was give him the Black Plague, and that gives Nick Cage's character motivation to go on this quest.
Yeah, that would have worked.
I feel
Yeah.
like that would have been maybe even better, dare I say, because really the whole movie hinges on the fact that Nick Cage's character is a caring person about this girl that he's never met, that reminds him of a person he killed.
Well, it's his guilt that's driving him, and she
Sure.
even calls that out towards the end too. But I think you're right. I think your motivation would have been a stronger motivation.
Yeah. But they didn't do that. So, yeah. Yeah. So then the end is really just this giant fight scene with a CGI demon and a bunch of corpses with weird bloated face prosthetics,
Yeah, so the
similar to the ones
demon
we've
brings
seen.
all these monks kind of back to life. He possesses them,
Yeah.
and so they have to cut off the heads of all these monks.
Right.
Oh man.
Yeah. At one point he yells, like, "Cut off the head!"
Yeah.
And it was
They
a
do
really
the
good
wall
moment.
climbing, spider climbing thing that they do in
Yeah,
all these demon
that
movies.
was another thing I didn't really like about this movie, is that the like when they were trying to scare you was when you were like the least scared, because they were just speeding up footage to make it look like something was moving really fast.
Yeah.
It's kind of that tropey thing that it was fun, or it was like pretty common around the time this movie was made. They did that a lot in like the early aughts and late 2000s
Hmm.
in horror movies. So, you know, that's probably why we're sick of it, because that was a trope that was like 13 years ago or something. But yeah, it was not great. But yeah, all these monks come back to life. They start decapitating them. Um, and then we see the fight with the CGI demon, and he goes after Nick Cage's character, and the demon starts like wing stabbing him. He has spikes in his wing, and Nick Cage is like hugging this creature while the other guy performs the ritual, and so it's just like stabbing him, but Nick Cage is just hanging on to this character, or this
Mm-hmm.
CGI creature. And eventually the ritual goes through. Nick Cage
Well,
is
so
left.
Kai has to finish the ritual because yeah,
Right.
the
The
priest gets
priest
killed.
dies. Yeah.
So
But
Kai
he does.
fulfills.
He
Yeah.
fulfills the prophecy, and
Good
what
thing he can speak
prophecy?
Latin.
Right. He didn't actually speak any Latin. He was just like reading things he could see on the page and didn't know what they meant. He was hoping he was reading the right spell.
I don't know.
But
Can you read Latin?
no, I'm not, man, I'm not faulting him. Of course, I wasn't born in the Middle Ages when that was a more common language, but yeah, so he finishes the ritual, the demon bursts into something, and everything's better now, except Nick Cage is still lying on the floor dying and bleeding. And then we get nudity,
There it
which,
is.
boom. You don't really see anything, but there's a naked girl just laying on the ground, formerly a demon. Now, now a naked girl, the artist formerly known as Demon.
That's right.
Yeah. So nudity. Oh yeah, Nick Cage dies at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Spoiler alert. We're at the end of the movie now, and he's been stabbed by demon wings one too many times and can't recover.
That's right.
And then we get our voiceover ending with Kai riding off into the sunset with the girl, and the weird lingering shot of the book. As like it feels like that whole ending was meant to set up a second movie. Did you get that vibe too? Like, why is it important that we know he has the book? It doesn't really change anything.
Yeah, I mean, I
He's
guess you're
gone, the
right.
plague is gone. It felt like they were setting it up like, the end of an action movie when you see that this person kept this thing and now they're going on to more adventures.
Yeah,
But
that's a good point. And there's nothing that I was able to find that even says that they were thinking about making another one. So
yeah, it's just the way it felt. Maybe they weren't, but I don't know how they would. Also, I didn't put together during this movie that that was supposed to be the Black Plague, because I guess in my mind, when I picture the Black Plague, it was more than one village
well, yeah. I mean, I think
or more than one town named Village, I
I
guess.
think the idea, right, is that Bayman and Felsen have just been away for so long that they just don't know what's been going on. You know,
I guess, yeah.
I
It's just
think
as
is the
weird that
idea.
like all these birds are circling this one town, and that seems to be where the plague is located. And but in my mind, it was a much larger issue than a single town named Village.
Yeah, I mean, it was. It killed tens of millions of people.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I think we just got like a myopic view.
Sure. I think it was just like I said, a little bit of a you know artist liberty.
Yeah, that's
Um,
fair.
but yeah, that's the movie.
That's it.
Not
Yeah.
as bad as I expected. I actually enjoyed a lot of it. But yeah, it's still definitely solid in the middle area of the Nick Cage movies. I like think it's a little bit more towards the top of the middle.
Top of the middle. Okay.
Like on our scores, if 8 to 12 or 13 is the middle, then it's somewhere near the top of that, I would say. But what do you think?
Well, that's fair. Well, all right. So yeah, so now we got to rate the movie, right? So for those of you who don't know, we rate our movies on overall quality, overall caginess, 0 through 20, 20 high, 1, 0, whatever low. And yeah, I'll go first.
Sure.
I thought it was fine. Right. I think there's some really good things in here, like we talked about, right? Claire is really good in this. The practical costuming is really good in this. The other props and sets and things like that, those are really good in this. The story's pretty cliche. The writing's not so great. They kind of go in and out of talking in a quote medieval way and then talking
Yeah,
totally normal sometimes.
it's true.
Which is never great, but it is what it is. I liked it more than some of the other films that we've watched, though. So I think I'm going to give it a 12 on quality.
Yeah, I think I'm right in there on that too. So I
Yeah.
think we're on the same page.
Okay. So we got a 12 on quality. Caginess, I mean, there's not a lot in here. He plays it fairly mellow. He's a knight. He's trying to be chivalrous, right? And things like that. He doesn't really.
Yeah, he's not really over the top.
Yeah. And so it's pretty low. I'm struggling actually to think of any real
The only
moments.
really cagey thing is like he I didn't think it qualified for the weird accent square, but he did have like a weird inflection in his voice that he was using. But that's like the cagiest thing he does in the whole movie, which isn't really worth much.
Yeah, and so I think that's pretty low.
Yeah.
So like, I mean, there's he kind of has the freak out when he wants to kill her a little bit and think I don't know.
But even that's not really
it's
that
not
big of a freak out.
right. So like, I mean, what are you thinking? Like, I feel like is a one crazy?
No, I think it's like more cagey than pig, which
Right.
would be a 1.
So like,
I'm gonna say like maybe a 3 or a 2. I mean, it's definitely low.
yeah, that's
He
tough.
doesn't play it as straight as he does like pig,
That's
for
true.
example,
Yeah, or
which would be a
Joe.
1, or Joe.
That's a good point. Okay, so then I think a three is fair.
Yeah, I'm good with
Okay.
that.
So three on caginess, 12 on quality. Now, normally what we do at this point is we pick which Nicolas Cage movie is going to join our Wheelo cage because we spin our Wheelo cage to determine which Nicolas Cage movie we're going to talk about next. But we actually have a special episode next time where that movie has already been determined.
Yes.
And if you want to know what that is and learn all about that, then you will have to catch our Wheelo Cage announcement video about that. Go to comingofcage.com or follow us on social media and you can learn all about it.
That's
So,
right.
yeah. That's going to be it, though. Ryan, anything else for Season of the Witch?
No, if you're the one that bought Nick Cage's costume from this movie, hit me up. But no, that was a good. It was better than I thought it would be.
Yes, and I'm glad I could watch it on Hulu without commercials. So
That's fair.
all right. Well, that's going to be it for us. We are the Coming of Cage podcast. I'm Derek. That's Ryan.
See you later.